Hey guys, welcome to Stonell's Woodshop. I got another one for you. This is going to be, I think, a one-of-a-kind pretty much. I haven't seen anything like this on YouTube or in my travels. Somebody I know needed a desk for his gaming YouTube channel. He needs to put music equipment on it. The real difference with this desk that separates most like music producing desks, gaming desks, what have you, is he needs a sliding mechanism, almost like another table above, because he's going to have his keyboard on the main top, but he wants to put his iPad and other things so he can pull forward, use that while everything else is in use. So this is where I found a little bit of a challenge, but I think it turned out really nice. He's really happy with it, and I can't wait to take you guys on this journey. This took me a little while to build. I had to do a lot of this in my spare time. I had a lot of jobs going on at this point. This was actually during early 2021. This video is already pretty old considering what, we're in 2023 now. I had a lot of stuff built up for footage for this channel. I've just been super busy and I haven't been getting around to making these videos, but I plan on making a lot more this year. So stick with me a little bit, and going forward, I'm gonna pretty much walk you through what I'm doing here. So I hope you guys enjoy. So moving forward, at this point, you've seen the material that me and him went over, some of the cuts I've done now up to the point of making the carcass, and then you're gonna see quite a bit of pocket holes in this project. Some love them, some hate them. For this kind of project, this is the perfect application. Everything is getting glued and it, has plenty of time to dry. I'm bracing certain areas. So this is honestly just to get everything started. Right now you're seeing one of two of the carcasses being assembled. So right here, you're seeing me clamp everything up to be square. I'm a person, I'm very finicky on how boxes get put together. I like everything being as flat, straight, even as possible. This will save you guys a lot of time on things not fitting. I see a lot of guys try to put shelves in, and when they, go to do certain things, if things are not as square as they can be, you're gonna just run into a lot of headaches here and there. I used to try to just, when I started out, screwing things together, and honestly guys, you got to take the procedures of keeping things clamped, double checking everything, use your speed square, make sure things are nice and perfect. I know it might sound very funny or like a no duh moment, but you want to get the things done, but at the end of the day, these little things make huge differences in the end product here. So right now I'm screwing these together. I like taking things one at a time. Wood today is rough. A lot of things are not straight, especially plywoods. We decided to go with a little bit of a cheaper grade for cost purposes. Even the nicer stuff can be, a little wonky, but I've learned over the years, you got to take it one screw at a time, and sometimes I have to finagle the top to the middle to the bottom, and you got to just work, one side at a time, and it'll go. Usually, as long as it's not too crazy out, they'll go together. So what you're seeing here is the top I'm cutting out. This was I want to say 1-inch hardwood pine top that we picked up. I'm cutting it to size for specs of the desk, and right here, this Milwaukee router, just real quick, is awesome. I used to use corded tools most of the time. There is nothing like a palm router. I have a big one, like most of you probably do, and having one of these small ones for projects like this are very quick. It's enjoyable, and honestly, if you have a pretty big battery, that thing will run for quite a while. So right now, I'm pretty much just, getting it prepped, doing the round over, and I'm going to stain it now. This is the color we both went with. I think it's a really nice choice for his aesthetics of the room it's going in, and it just looks really good. So right now, it's a lot of staining coming up, a lot of time consuming things, letting things soak and dry up. I like to make sure, I rub it in really good. I usually get away with one coat. It depends on the color and the wood. I think for this one, it was just one coat. You're going to see a little bit later that I had to actually sand it. It kind of almost seemed like it raised the grain or something happened with the top. But yeah, I'm just making sure I'm getting the edges. And then there's the final piece for that. Looks really good. So moving on, just a lot more sand. There's a lot of sanding in this project too, especially with these cheaper grade woods, more construction grade woods. You know, you get what you pay for, and usually that means they need a lot more sanding. They look a lot more rustic because of the knots, which again is the aesthetic we were going for. So there's going to be a lot of sanding in between. I'm going to save you guys a lot of the trouble and cut quite a bit of this out. So I'm just showing you kind of where, you know, how I'm going over it, and yeah. So this is what I was talking about. So right here, I mean, this video, like I said, is a little bit older compared to where we are today, but I'm trying to remember fully what happened here. Like I said, I think it just felt kind of gritty. So if you could see, I'm kind of just like tossing myself throughout it. I am trying to take off as minimal material as possible. And then after that, I'm just I like blowing stuff out with air, getting the dust out, getting ready for stain, because if things, you know, the dust stays in there, it doesn't grab as well, and it might look a little weird. So make sure that's all cleaned up. Coming in, more pocket holes. Like I said, I am prepping, I want to say, the shelves now. And yeah, there's going to be, I think, a total of 3 per side. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of these coming up. Okay, a little trick here, guys. I like to take my scrap wood and cut a spacer blocks pretty much to set the shelves. What this essentially does is it keeps everything very square. You don't have to guess, you know, you pre-figure out your measurements on where you want to keep everything, and then I clamp everything tight. I make usually 4, and then I set them in, and you know, I clamp everything tight and screw it together. Here you can see I'm making another shelf, and I'm essentially going to do this. I'm going to have a stop block for every time I add a new shelf. Just make sure you know your measurements, know where the final depth is going to be, and honestly, this trick works phenomenal. Okay, so same thing. I am going to glue each side of the shelves into the frame of the unit. It keeps everything nice and square, gives it extra strength. I totally recommend anywhere there's going to be anything fixed, you got it. I really think you should glue it. I know the downside is, you know, it's pretty much permanent for the most part after you do it, but you know, as long as you know this is exactly what you want and you don't plan on making any adjustments, this is the way to go. So here I'm going to do every side. Usually try to put on a decent amount of glue when it comes to the end grain, because it will soak it up pretty good, especially plywood. You know, yeah, and then we'll be putting them all in. Same thing as before, got those little spacer blocks in each corner. I like to clamp pretty close to the shelf so it does not move, and I will do each side as necessary. And then, you know, just careful when you're screwing in. Pocket holes can strip out pretty easily, so it's kind of a feel thing. Practice makes perfect. But yeah, everything is going to be screwed together, and we'll go to the next part. So here I'm staining the outside of each carcass. Yeah, I'm going to speed this up a little bit for the montage, but you know, a lot of surface to cover, so I'm going to do these, let these dry. I try to tackle staining in the most efficient way possible because it does take a little while for it to dry to touch, and then when you're moving things around, you could start tracking it on things and it could become a certain mess. So I try to do as much as I can at once and, you know, let it soak for the initial amount of time, depending on humidity, temperature. There's really no time limit on that. But yeah, those are pretty much finished up. I lost some of the footage for the keyboard drawer that's going to be under the top. So these are the rails for that. I'm doing more pocket holes, and I will show you how that looks a little later in the video. So this is where we're at right now. This is what a normal computer desk would usually look like. You can obviously see the keyboard drawers in there. I'm sorry that I couldn't show you more of the construction of it, but it's pretty simple. I have the 2 runners that you saw me cut. I got my draw slides mounted up like normal, and I mounted each one per carcass. Here I am going to be cutting trim. I made my own trim for this. I actually do this quite often. Trim is expensive, and usually I do a lot of weird custom things, so I usually rip it down on a table saw, mill it up, and you can see here I'm air nailing it and gluing it to to spot. Another big thing for me is mitered edges. I have a severe issue with making sure things are perfect, and this is one thing I'm always learning and trying to get better at. I always try to make sure the four corners of this box has perfect miters, so I'm usually, this takes me longer than it probably should, but I like creeping up on them and making sure they look perfect. It's the little details to me that really stand out, and you're going to see here in this upcoming picture of how good I try to get them. So this is what you might not see everybody do. I'm using a hand plane to clean up trim. You know, sandpaper works. There was, for some reason, it was a little jutted. I can't remember why, but you know, a really sharp plane, you know, I kind of burr out the edge, and then I'm going to go over with some sandpaper. It's just kind of to speed it up. It's the main reason I use a plane. I don't use it often, but you know, these little tricks do help speed it up. Just be careful, because if your planer is not sharp, you're going to destroy that piece of wood, and you're gonna have to rip things out, and you're gonna have to spend more time for no reason. So just be careful to use what you're comfortable with. That's the choice I made. So on the next one, same procedure, going around doing the same exact thing I did on the left side, adding trim, and we'll move on to the next part. So right now I'm just putting in the flat pieces of trim. You might be able to see it on the camera, I'm not sure. One or two of the miters had like a slight gap. I usually fill the nail holes and 90% of the time, depending on the project. So I'll probably go over that a little bit. Sometimes they're just a little out of square, you know, and I don't feel like trying to figure out the exact angle. So, you know, I'm just about to do a bunch of sanding here, getting everything finally prepped. I'm going to do a different stain color to two-tone this. And yeah, moving on. Right here, I'm just making sure, because it's the keyboard draw, that trim is dead perfect to the base, and just, you know, cleaning up any rounded edges and whatnot. I happen to find actually part of the keyboard draw. So right here, I'm just showing that the slider position, how it's mounted to the carcass, and then on the keyboard itself, just showing you how it's operating, where the pocket holes. I like keeping everything hidden as much as possible. Just be careful where the pocket holes are. Now this is the thing that I don't think I've ever seen before. The top part, I'm essentially making another top that's half the width, because he will have a piano keyboard on that top base. And I came up with, after racking my brain for quite some time, I got a mini slider, and I'm using these two pieces of hard pine as ledges, and I'm essentially going to make a bridge where this will rotate forward and back on a slider. I was thinking about this through and through, probably making this too overcomplicated, but I've never seen anybody do this before. And then right here, I'm also, I think that's 4 or 5 quarter pine, I can't remember. I'm making a very thick brace for the bottom back of the two carcasses, so there will be no deflection, and it will keep it stiff. Again, more pocket holes, and I am going to mount that towards the back side to keep rigidity, because the only thing that's going to be really holding it is the top, and I don't want that to be the only stress point of this desk. It is going to be pretty heavy, so keeping this back brace will really keep things square and stiff, and when you move it around, it won't bend or bow as much. So here's another little trick. I think those are 40-inch Bessie clamps. I don't have anything longer at the time, so you can daisy chain them to make essentially a longer clamp. They're bar clamps, so they are very strong. I had them just to make sure everything would stay in place with the pocket holes. As you can see, it's on the back. And yeah, little funny thing my wife threw in there for me. We're gonna use polyurethane wheels. I really believe in investing in good wheels. He wanted this to be mobile in his room. Yeah, and there's not a lot of options with this kind of weight. You know, the cheaper wheels, I just don't think they work that good. So I used self tappers, made sure, you know, everything was good there, and mounted them up. As for here, this is the two ledges I was talking about for that secondary top. We're trying to catch the dust, which is obviously not working. Routers are so dusty and dirty. But yeah, we're doing a little round over and some sanding to finalize that. This is now the top part, which you will see soon going into place. Just making sure everything is nice and smooth and get everything ready for the next prep. So again, more staining, what a surprise. It's going to be the same color as the top. Again, this should be just one coat. I'm just going over everything nice and easy, making sure I really rub it in good. And yeah, I'll be doing this to both sides of the ledges and both sides of the top, because unfortunately you're going to see all that, and then you could see the slider on the lower part. So I'm just doing my best to get in every area that you're visually going to see. I'm also going to be doing a little trick for the pocket holes that are going to be going into these ledges, so we will check that out in a little bit. So I'm just getting the other side real quick, making sure I rub that in, and yeah, there'll be a little bit more staining, and then we'll move on to the next part. So here I'm getting the second top for the desk, again same color. I'm just making sure, you know, I get everything in one coat again. For some reason, I didn't have to sand this one. I still don't understand why the top did that, but yeah. And then I'm just doing the stain on the front trim. I'm matching that to the inside of the box, just doing all my final touches, and then we'll be moving on. That is the final part of that staining process. So moving on, I am also now drilling pocket holes to accept the top part of the table. This I had to think about too, because I don't want to see any hardware. I want it to kind of look floating and look, you know, very different, and I wanted to make it look as streamlined as possible. So as you can see, I'm using a Q-tip to stain everything, and you know, just double checking my measurements. And I am going to check now with this combination square. I'm getting my allowances set up for the top. It is a very close fit. I'm only leaving a very small reveal, and then you can see I got my little special right angle tool to fit in here. Without this tool, I don't think I would have been able to do it. You would need a very small impact. So I have everything clamped and triple checked every measurement before putting it in, and as you can see, it is together. I have that little reveal there in the front to accept the keyboard and some more room, and yeah, these do not self-close, but as you can see here, I actually plugged so I had to actually resand everything. I wanted to plug in it and sanding it smooth. So a fun thing I had to do here was I wanted to put his logo on here. So my wife actually has a vinyl graphic business. I actually went to college for graphics, so we are heavily into this side of the business also. So that was a real help when you're doing carpentry. We made his YouTube channel name. This was a surprise to him, actually. We didn't even tell him we were doing this. We thought this would be a really cool touch. Yeah, and we're just setting it up now. I've never lacquered over vinyl before. From what I've understood, it seems like it is a go. I am recording this, you know, almost 2 years later, year and a half, 2 years later, and it is still perfectly fine to this day. So that was a good success. We have our ruler and everything is clamped there. We are now peeling off the graphic, and we are going to let it sit up for a while, and then we're going to move on to doing the final preparations for this desk. Everything is coming out really good so far. I'm very happy with how everything is looking, and yeah. Again, quickly, I'm just using compressed air. I really like doing that to make sure all the dust is off. A lot of sanding did just happen in between all that. I'm trying out this triple thick polyurethane. I like trying different things, especially when it's clients I'm more familiar with, and you know, there's some more leeway, but you know, it says it claims 3 coats in one. I'm pretty sure I did 2, which they claim 6. I don't know about all that, but it looked really good. I like trying new stuff, so yeah, it's laying on really good. I'm just going over all the tops right now. This is definitely time consuming. It's a lot of area. I was really making sure that the graphic looked good. But as for the carcass, I am going to use a tung oil. I don't see the need to it would just be such a bigger cost. And you know, I really like how it pulls. You can obviously see how much it's shining up the green and the wood. It's starting to look really nice. So now I'm going over all of that and the shelves, and then there will be a nice polyurethane on the tops and in the keyboard where a lot of the heavy abuse is being used. I'm making sure I was wiping everything out again, and then I laid my tung oil in there. As you can see, that's a nice, I think it's satin. It's got a really nice sheen already. So as you can see, I am sanding the first coat. You can see the haze. It's sanding up pretty nice. I'm just doing a nice light pass to make sure, you know, usually you always feel grit on the first coat. It's never a done deal on one coat. I don't recommend, even if it claims it does multiple coats, you should always sand the first coat and apply another one. And then from there, you know, it's a feel thing, experience thing, but I would definitely see where you're at on the second coat. Sometimes I've had to do well more than 2 coats depending on the project, but here we go again. I am doing the exact same procedure. I'm laying on a whole nother coat, again over the graphic, trying to make sure the foam brush doesn't disintegrate on that. And yeah, it's looking really good. I love the shine that came out. Everything is looking pretty much just about done. As you can see, this is the slide mechanism operating. I really liked how that came out. It's honestly pretty stable. And then I made a TikTok a while back, so this is the only video I have of it, me like demonstrating it, so bear with me a little bit. It's just the only thing I really had to show how everything is operating. That lower keyboard drawer has a self-close mechanism. The top doesn't, because he needs to use his iPad forward, and they don't make anything, I don't think, that small. So overall, I think it came out really good. It's very solid. I got my little brand on each side. I stamp all my projects, and yeah, it's very smooth. The lacquer went over really nice on the graphic, and overall, you know, I packed it up. I actually wound up driving this. This was a couple hours away, just easier than dealing with shipping. And then you could see this is in his house with some of his stuff on it. There's a lot more things on it now, but this was the first day of him using it. On top where it says Gaming Authority, for what he needs it for, like I said, you could see his little laptop, he has a little iPad, a little monitor. It's more than enough. I wouldn't put anything extremely heavy on it, but it's working perfectly for his application. We're actually in the process of maybe doing an extension on this in the future. He really seems to like it. Yeah, so I hope you guys liked this video, and you know, subscribe, thumbs up if you thought it was good. I plan on making a lot more videos this year, so I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great one.